Hi there, this is David and welcome to the top 10 worst enemy encounters. All of us who have ever played an RPG know what it's like to run into a dreaded monster. The ones that drag on forever, deplete your resources, kill you outright, or are just plain annoying. Well, that's what we're going to be discussing here today. But do keep in mind that I will not be talking about boss fights here. This list is strictly going to be covering regular encounters in classic RPGs. So come and hop on board the nostalgic hate train. Number 10, summoning monsters. There are few things worse than random encounters with enemies that you don't want to deal with, but it really adds insult to injury when those annoying enemies summon even more annoying enemies. They immediately become priority number 1 because the vicious cycle will never end until you defeat that summoner. Whether they call more of themselves super powerful enemies or healers, it's all just so frustrating and drags on the random encounter out even longer. Number 9, exploding monsters. Don't even get me started on those stupid bombs that spam self-destruct right in your face. I hate that with a passion. All it means is that you get to waste time in the menu healing up, or even worse, reviving the unfortunate victims. Then there's those trees in Earthbound. Ugh. For those unaware, the game uses a pretty cool rolling HP system, so even if you're hit with mortal damage during the battle, if you end it fast enough, you'll survive. It's a cool mechanic, but the trees are especially obnoxious when you first encounter them in the peaceful Rest Valley, since you are still traveling alone. Number 8, MP draining monsters. These kind of mobs appear in other games, but they really do seem to bother me the most in the Dragon Quest series, where MP is precious, inventory space for medical herbs is at a premium, and wizard rings are incredibly rare. Mudmen always seem to show up at the most inopportune times, use their strange jig, and then just suck you dry of MP, especially if you're about to go exploring a dungeon. It's infuriating when you get 5 steps in, have to cast outside, return, stay at an inn, and try again. Number 7, cloning and regenerating monsters. To me, these guys are similar but worse than the summoning monsters. At least there you know who the target is. Here, all the enemies are targets. First rearing their ugly heads in Final Fantasy III, where they split into 2 if you don't hit them with the right abilities. I would think that Square learned their lesson, but no, they popped up in Secret of Mana as well, though they were far less annoying here. Then we went years without being tortured by them, only to see them rear their ugly heads in Final Fantasy Dimensions. There's a reason why I hate mobile gaming. Number 6, deadly monsters. Why is it that when you want to use an instant death spell it never hits, but when an enemy uses it on you, it always hits? The Ice Cave in Final Fantasy was especially egregious for this, and I think the most stressful moment in gaming is right after exiting the Cave to Roan, but before you make it to that save point. If you're unfortunate enough to meet one of these bastards, you'd better run before they kill everyone. And what about Shin Megami Tensei, where you get an automatic game over when the main character dies? Instant death spells are thrown around like candy in those games. It's just ridiculous, especially when there's really nothing that you can do about it. Number 5, mimics. Cannaboxes, tricks, whatever you want to call them. They're pains in the asses all the same. Exploration and finding treasure is the cornerstone of RPGs, so what's with this slap in the face that developers just love to make you deal with? They pop up seemingly everywhere, and it's not just a bait and switch, it's a bait and death. They're always so much more powerful than the other enemies around, and they seem to love to spam those instant death spells. You go from being so happy, thinking that you're going to be getting a new piece of equipment, to devastated because you have to leave, revive, and save. Now, instead of broad categories, let's talk about some specific monsters that I really can't stand, starting with number 4, the Hades Condor in Dragon Quest III. What's worse than dying? I'll tell you, limboing all the way back to Eliahan. Thankfully, it doesn't happen often, but it's damned annoying when it does. If you cast Limbo, it acts like an instant death spell, but if an enemy casts it on you, A fate worse than death awaits you. Your character is blasted straight out of the party. He's gone. Like, for real. And if you want to get them back, you have to go all the way back to Louisa's place and add them back yourself. It just stops you dead in your tracks. Number 3, the trapdoor in Final Fantasy IV. Good God. Talk about an encounter that single-handedly ruined an otherwise pretty decent dungeon. See all these doors here? Every single one of them is a trap door. They're all over the place. But what makes them especially obnoxious is their 5,000 HP total and a penchant for instant death spells. They throw them around indiscriminately, and to make it worse, they can transform into a Chimera Brain who has even more HP, casts an ice breath on your entire team, and is immune to elemental magic. It's just a painful slog as you fight them over and over and over again. Number 2, the Tonberry from the Final Fantasy series. First appearing in Final Fantasy V, then haunting your dreams ever since, these are unassuming murderers. They slowly plod towards you, and if you can't deal with them fast enough, they instantly kill you. It's like a timed challenge between you, the Tonberry, and a game over. Basically, once they do get to you, they unleash the Chef's Knife attack, which deals massive damage to a single party member. Then, if you deign to attack them, they'll counter with Karma, dealing huge damage to that character. And they have an astronomical HP amount as well. You might as well just reset the game if you run into one of these little shits. And finally, number 1, the Marlboro from the Final Fantasy series. These guys have always been something that I've dreaded running into. They have a ton of HP, sometimes even attack in groups, and if that wasn't bad enough, they inflict every single negative status ailment in the game on your entire party with a single move. Then you pretty much just sit there and watch helplessly as your confused members slaughter each other, and there's nothing that you can do about it. And why is it that they always seem to hang out toward the end of dungeons when you're about to, leave and save? And speaking of status ailments being damned annoying, let's have an honorable mention for these stupid frog bitches that ambush you with every single fight. They're maddening. Well, that's it for the top 10. What are your worst encounters in RPGs? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments, and as always, have a good day.